Hello! Wearing that crazy $4 shirt that I got at a crazy sale. I couldn't pass it up. Hey, what do you think of that bag I just made? It's made out of buckskin. You don't actually have to put a closure on the front flap if you have a secondary flap that's covering up the contents. Isn't that neat? The great thing in ingenious nature about buckskin like that, like the Native Americans used, and goes back countless thousands of years, is that it's extremely lightweight, extremely compressible. I could take that whole bag and like bunch it up and stick it in my pocket. You can't, there's no bag out there currently like that except for like a silk bag, which is really expensive. And I haven't seen one of those in years that will hold that much stuff that you could, when empty, compress and, squeeze together and stick it in your pocket. I love stuff like that. Buckskin's kind of hard to find. I want to point out something before starting this video on ether, physics, metaphysics. Of course, physics and metaphysics, it's not two different things, like talking about the head side of a coin and the tail side of a coin. Both of those are one thing, and one thing only, which of course is the coinage itself. What fell back there? Did something fall back there? Sounded like something fell. People are shooting fireworks outside. Is that I've got the only videos on YouTube, and I mean that, I dare you to find a link, of where everything the center holds on field theory. The physics, the metaphysics, what is a field? Super simple. Mother Nature's a hippie chick with muddy feet, doesn't have a calculator. Field is an ether perturbation modality. What's the ether? Well, the ether, of course, is not a what. What's reference to phenomena. I'm going to get into that, where everything actually holds. The center actually has to hold. The center holds means, is there all these various things out there by themselves that contradict other aspects of the totality of the picture? If it's true, and you're talking about fields and the ether and magnetism, force and motion, inertia, pressure mediation, black holes, stars, light, everything, they all have to be in a felly, in a circle, and they all have to be somehow directly pointing towards the center. This means, of course, it's a center hold, and of course there's nobody out there that's doing that. Even the people that I'm completely against, the atomists, admit that there must be a GUT, a grand unified theory, and of course there is, but they're so myopic and they're so clueless that they can't see what is blatantly obvious before them. Let's talk about Tesla's ether and ether physics thereof, and specifically the implications, and a lot of the things that people keep pointing towards. One of the primary things that people never point out, seemingly, I've really only seen a couple people ever mention it in countless years, is that there is a gazillion different theories about the ether. When someone says, well, disprove the ether, it's like, well, which version of it are we referring to? Kant had his own type of ether, Charles Proteus Steinmetz had his own type of ether, Aristotle had his own vision of the ether. Aristotle had his own vision of the ether, Cydianus, Damasius, Proclus, Walter Russell, Nikola Tesla, on and on and on. So I'm not interested in, you picking out one specific person and disproving, their myopic, twisted, upside down, backwards, illogical and irrational views. Oh, look at that, I disproved the ether. It's like, no, you didn't. You pointed out the specific commentary about the ether, and you disproved it, but you weren't disproving the ether at all, rather an illogical premise and statement about the ether from one person in particular. So here's a neat analogy of light in the ether. I think it was map gas. There's this 1-inch clear tube. It's about 30 feet long. I don't know if it was map gas, but an invisible gas. I don't know if it was map gas. It certainly wasn't propane. And nobody should do this. And of course we all have this crazy idea that light is propagating and moving, you flip a light switch, then it's emitting out photons and all these other crazy atomistic ideas. And a guy actually lights this tube of this non-volatile yet flammable gas. There's this 3-inch pulse of bright light where the actual gas is being burned. And you could see that pulse of light through that clear plastic tubing travel through the 20 and 30 feet, and it warps around, relative to how the tube is twisted every which way. And the simpleton, this is what every human being unfortunately gets wrong, is they think, well, the speed of light. Speed, of course, implies something is moving. It's moving from point A to point B. And that's not true, but everybody has that ideation of speed. And we actually think that that light pulse, and looking at the video, if I can find the video, I'll post it, is traveling through there, but it's not. Nothing is traveling. One section is burning, and that section burns the other section, but it doesn't, since it's not super flammable, it doesn't all flash at once. And you'd have to do high-speed videography to see it actually pulse at a certain rate. But it looks like that burning section is traveling through there, but nothing is ever traveling. And that's kind of a near-perfect analogy of light, and everybody has this ideation. And we think, of course, no different than the speed of sound, and this is the reason why Nikola Tesla said he considered light to be a sound wave in the ether. Of course, a wave of what? A wave is a reference to a medium. Light does require a medium. All fields require a medium. I mean, it's 100% irrefutable. 100,000% irrefutable. Requires a medium. The medium of sound, of course, is oxygen and nitrogen. Case of our atmosphere here. But when sound is generated, we all have the idea of the speed of sound, something is traveling. That's the rate of induction, or the hysteresis of the medium. And saying hysteresis of the medium, it means the rate at which that disturbance can occur. Both sound and light have a transverse frequency and a wavelength, and that transverse medium has something called a lag. And the lag is dependent on the rate of induction of that medium. In the case of sound, that is air. In the case of light, it's the ether itself. But it's not necessarily just light, it's all fields specifically. And all fields, of course, are frequency and demonstrable phenomena, epiphenomena technically, of the ether. Sound requires a medium. This is the reason why there's no sound in space, right? Light requires a medium. Light, since it requires a medium, is why Tesla. Maybe you think you're smarter than Tesla. Maybe you do. I don't know. He's not the only person that said that. He also said there's no such thing as an electron. The phenomena of the electron is certainly true. Someone was asking me in an email last night, well, how does non-electrons work in the case of valence conjoining of atoms and molecules? I mean, that's as silly as thinking that when you pull your hot socks out of the dryer and they're stuck together, which is due to electrostatics, by the way, that they're glued together due to electrons, and of course they're not. It's simplex electrostatics, which of course is a field modality. This atomistic mindset is the fundamental brain fart of current day humanity. Materialism and atomism are the head and the tail of the exact same coin. Currently, humanity is wrapped up in atomism. Relativity, reified space and time. Of course, time is only a measure, and a measure is not a thing. And it reified space, which Tesla said over and over again, has no properties. And of course, space has no properties. True energy, by definition, of course, is the ether, which is rest, but once again, humanity can't wrap its mind around it. I've seen so many countless videos of people talking about or trying to disprove the ether on YouTube. One of them's a guy that actually took secrets from a microchip manufacturing facility, not person, and he sold it to a evil adversarial government. But this guy's always making false misnomers about the ether. But there's a lot of people out there on YouTube doing that. Of course, the field is very simply an ether perturbation modality. Light is a compound coaxial circuit and is also, too, a special type of disturbance of the ether. Michelson-Morley experiment never in any way, shape, or form disprove the ether. Everybody keeps referencing that, and they think that's some sort of proof, and it's not proof at all. But you can't even posit a field without a medium. You can't posit sound without a medium, and that medium, of course, is air. Then they ask themselves, and this is where my center holds, and I'm not, trying to, pound my chest like a lowland gorilla here, but I'm the only person that's been hyperlogical and rational, where the center holds in absolutely everything. Black holes, light, atoms, magnetism. I've easily got more videos on magnetism than anybody else in the world. I mean, thousands, literally. Way too many, really. I keep having to explain things because it's so divinely simple, yet I keep coming up with new analogies to people to grasp it. The center must hold. Mother Nature must be simple. You can't have like gravity out here and magnetism over here and light over here. And it all has to be joined like a wheel, like I said, and it all has to point towards the center. Grand unification. Unification is necessitated. The Greeks had a word for this, ananke. Necessity doesn't really cut it as far as a translation. It's one of those magical ancient Greek words that's untranslatable. What it really means is it can't exist any other way. Simplicity is divinity, and my funny analogy is that Mother Nature's a hairy armpit chick with muddy feet, and she doesn't use a calculator. Everything she does is pressure mediation, force of motion, inertia, and acceleration, and simplex pressure mediation. Centrifugal, centripetal, all force and motion is curvilinear. That's because everything is tied to rest. Rest itself, of course, is energy, no different than ether. The implications of the ether, however, are countless, but I'd like to mention a few of them. And people don't talk about this. I've never heard anybody talk about what if it is the case that the ether is. And of course, is also, too, really an inappropriate word because that means demonstrable and objective, and the ether is not objective and demonstrable. But it means the pure connectivity of absolutely everything in the universe. The idea that I'm over here, and you're over there, and he's over there. Everything is connected, and I know that sounds like a New Age premise, but everything is ultimately connected. True, genuine holistics, true, rational, logical holistics of both body, mind, and spirit. I know that sounds New Agey also, and I'm not a New Ager. When you actually posit the ether, many, many things pop up as if the ether is, and of course is inappropriate, then all these things are 100% undeniable. It's like, well, you posit the ether, then you must posit this. When this happens, then that must necessitatively also happen. And true holistics is one of them. Sympathetic resonance as a basis for all health, all peace, all strife, all suffering. Sympathetic resonance. You posit the ether, you posit the undeniability of sympathetic resonance through every aspect of your life. This means understanding life on every level of what ails you and what enrages you and its antinomies is undeniable also. The full connection between physics and metaphysics, of course, have always been connected. Human beings have tried, well, there's physics over here and metaphysics over there. Like, no, it's completely impossible. Completely. Everything, and this is a true Tesla quote, everything, the secret to the universe, something like that, is energy, frequency, and vibration, which is really like saying dirty dirt, it's energy, frequency, vibration are all fundamentally one and the same thing. Frequency and vibration is a modulation of rest or energy. So when he talks about the secret of the universe in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration, he's talking about rest or the ether, and its disturbance as measured by us silly humans in terms of frequency and wavelength. And that is true of emotions and strife, objectification, attachments, the very fundamental metaphysics of both Greek, Indian, and Egyptian metaphysics. Everything becomes hyper-rational and hyper-simple when you actually posit what is 100% undeniable, which is the ether. Plato talked about it, Aristotle talked about it, the Pythagoreans did, Eric Dollard, Nikola Tesla, James Clerk Maxwell, Charles Brodie Steinmetz. But maybe you think you're more intelligent than those critters. And I've got some bad news for you, you're not. Nor have you thought about it even 1/1000th. I've thought about the ether I'd have to travel thousands of miles to find somebody who even thought about the ether half as much as I have, and I'm not boasting that. I'm just saying that's true. Has it made me any money? No, it hasn't. I don't think about it because I'm trying to think about it making me money, because it's one of the fundamental secrets of the universe. So the implications of once you posit the ether, which can't be denied, but once you acknowledge it, everything becomes super connected, which I know is not really a word, but everything becomes super connected. Light is a sound wave in the ether, as Nikola Tesla said. So that's really the one quote of Tesla that nobody ever quotes except for me. I've really not heard anybody say it except for me over and over and over again. It means the disturbance in frequency and wavelength of a medium. The fools out there that want to deny the ether, they are so myopic, they're so feckless, they're so clueless, it's unbelievable. They want you to point to the ether, or they want you to show them a piece of the ether, or they want to posit it as a piece of, in whole or in part, of some sort of physical object. So, well, you don't love your mother or your children or your brothers. It's like, what are you talking about? Well, you can't point to it, you can't cut a piece of it off of it for me. You know, it's not made of particles, you can't count it, it has no Cartesian value measured in length, width, or depth. Isn't that the case? Yes. Well, you don't love your wife or kids. Sure I do. Prove it. You've set up the same criteria for the ether. You're hypocritical, you're irrational, and you're illogical. There's a million things that you and every other objective materialist will acknowledge without even thinking about it for a microsecond, like love and hate and hope and faith. These are the same people that have never defined the term energy or field. The exact same people. No branch of science has ever defined the term field. Definition for a field must be really simple. I've told you what it is. A field is an ether perturbation modality, just like ice, water, and steam are different temperature and pressure modalities of water. They're all one and the same thing. Hairy armpit chick Mother Nature makes it simple. Human beings, especially men love to complicate things. This is where men really fail. I mean, they fail bad. Men are really, really, really bad materialists. I forget the ratio, proportionality of men materialists versus women materialists, but men are really, really bad at it. Show me memory. Nobody's ever shown a memory. I went up this guy's head and I found the memory of his dead dog Spot from when he was a child. Everybody on Earth acknowledges memory, but you can't point to it. It doesn't have any demonstrable footprint. Here's another fact. By the way, when I was in Naples, this lady casts wax candles, beeswax, and this is the perfect geometry of the plane of inertia right here and the hyperboloid right here. Of course, this is a hyperboloid. This is the geometry of the dielectric. You know, it's kind of cut off at the top and the bottom, but I was like, oh, that's perfect. My dear friend in Naples, Florida, bought this for me. It's called Food and Thought, which is a really high-priced grocery store. But there's the plane of inertia right there. It's like, wow, some lady was making these wax candles. She had no idea what a hyperboloid is, or, you know, the conjugate geometry between the magnetic and the dielectric and the plane of inertia. Like, wow, there it is. I had to get that. Sorry about that. These are things that are nothing at all. And these are only a couple examples, and I could literally come up with 100 easily. Resonance of a geometry, like antennas. Antennas are cut to a resonant geometry that makes them sympathetic to the frequency that you're trying to dial in. Believe it or not, the wire inside this rubber ducky has a sympathetic resonance and a geometry, like a dipole antenna. And water, of course, is the dipole antenna for the manifestation of consciousness. Is one itself, geometry is nothing at all. Neither is a ratio anything at all. Yet without these things, we don't have consciousness. The antennas won't tune the signal appropriately. These things are 100% undeniable. I've got countless books on field theory, antenna theory, and I've built an awful lot of antennas. And if you don't build them with specific geometry and a specific cut length such that they are harmonic resonances to the frequencies you're trying to tune in, they don't work either at all or very good at all. But that geometry, a geometry is a measure, and it's for proportionality. Something that's supposed to be sympathetic to what you're trying to tune in. But it is nothing at all. You know, according to these foolish people's logic, you know, that also doesn't exist. But it's palpable and it's real and it's demonstrable. A ratio and a resonance and a geometry is nothing. Sure, a geometry is something. Relative to what? It's a ratio and a proportionality and a measure and nothing. A measure is not a thing. A foot, a mile, a meter, these are agreed upon standards of measurement that we can all kind of agree on. You know, we all over the whole world, no matter what your beliefs is, one way or another, and we all agree upon a foot, a kilometer, a mile. All these are measures. They're not things themselves. Same is true of the word quantum, das Lichtquant. It's a reference to a measure. We'll say, well, is the ether real, or is it abstract, or is it an object, or is it a shape? I mean, all those things are antithetical to the very definition of the ether. Ether is non-Cartesian, pure potential. It follows fluid dynamics, but obviously the ether is not fluid, it's not made of particles, it doesn't have any demonstrable presence. It follows pressure dynamics, because when you actually release energy, you create a specific circuit, depending on what the radiation is, of a set frequency. Gamma radiation, visible light, radio. You know, when I actually hit the push to talk button on this radio, I'm actually emitting out invisible light. In the case of radio frequency, it's all EMR, electromagnetic radiation. It's just as stupid as people, well, the ether doesn't exist, you can't point to it, you can't measure it, blah, 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 blah. Well, you can't measure the light that comes out of this antenna either. Invisible light, radio is light, it's just invisible spectrum EMR. The center doesn't hold with these people. Oh, the ether doesn't exist because you can't measure, you can't put your finger on it, you can't point to it. They keep wanting you to do that. We'll say, well, the ether must be nothing, and nothing is nothing. And these people confuse nothing with not a thing. Let me tell you what nothing is. Nothing, synonyms are space, emptiness, and emptiness is a qualifier. There's no such thing as emptiness. Something is empty of something else. Void or vacuum. These are human conceptions. They don't exist at all. But nothing is not to be confused with not a thing. Everything that is metaphysical is not a thing, meaning is not a phenomena. Not a thing means literally not phenomena. A thing is phenomena, demonstrable, atomic, palpable with a measure and a mass, even if it's invisible. But everything is energy, but oh wait, they never define the term energy. Or everything is a field, oh wait, they never define the term field. If you want, I can make a long, long laundry list of the implications of the ether, which will, make people's eyes get big as saucers, relative to how we could correctly and holistically look at the universe. When you actually posit the ether, the necessities of all these countless other things immediately pop into existence that most people never considered before. Like I said, holistic, sympathetic resonance, the absolute connectivity of everything between physics and metaphysics, which are not two different things, rather one holos, just like magnetism, dielectricity are the conjugate geometry of the universe. Magnetism is the extrinsic field modality of the loss of energy of the dielectric. The geometry of magnetism is toroidal. The geometry of the dielectric is a hyperboloid. Each is a negative image of one another, or the yin and the yang of the entire universe. It's not my premise, that's a fact. The negative image of a hyperboloid, this hourglass shape is a hyperboloid, it's a torus. Just imagine the negative image of this, a torus. Negative image of a torus is a hyperboloid. And the lowest pressure mediation between the fight, not that it's a real fight, between the magnetic and the dielectric, centrifugal and centripetal, is this neat little thing. Sits right there in the center called the plane of inertia. However, this is demonstrable and palpable, and it has length, width, and depth, but the plane of inertia is a region of the lowest pressure mediation between the magnetic and the dielectric. And the competing fields relative to the strength determines the specific geometry of the plane of inertia, but it's still a plane of inertia. But that is a matter for a different video, and I have to go further into depth talking about the plane of inertia. All these people out there say, oh, the ether is disproved. The ether has never been disproven. You can't even posit this universe and have the center hold based upon bumping particles. I call it the CUBP, cult of bumping particles. The universe doesn't work that way. Mother Nature is not a crazy chick with a magic bag of bumping particles. The universe can't work that way. It's illogical, it's irrational, it's insane. These people are refuting the ether for the same premise that they would refute their love or their faith or hope. You can't put your finger on it, you can't count it, you can't bisect it, you can't stick underneath the microscope. It's like, well, if the ether doesn't exist, that's right. Then, you don't love your mother. Well, of course I love my mother. Well, prove it. Show it to me. Point it to me. Well, the ether doesn't exist. And I'll go, you're right. Oh, you agree with me then? Yeah, let's look at the word exist. Exist means existence, means phenomenal, demonstrable, objective, palpable. The ether does not exist. Exist refers to Cartesian phenomena that are atomic and demonstrable. These people don't even have a fine enough mind to understand what phenomena is versus noumena. Objective versus subjective. Cartesian versus non-Cartesian. You want to know what rest is? Of course, there's a little gap there, so you can't take the analogy too far. This would be the ether right here, right in the center, except there is actually something there in the case of this hourglass, so don't take that analogy too far. That would be the ether. People are wanting to show me the ether out here. It's like, well, the ether isn't out here. Ether modalities are out here. Magnetism, electrostatics. The ether is right here. Where? I can't see it. They don't have a fine enough mind. Their mind is about as fine as this rock, meaning not fine at all. Let me to go deeper onto this subject. So I'm kind of skimming the edge of going too deep and, bewildering people, and that's never my intention, but let me know. Lux Veritas, and I will. If you want to contact me, information is the email below in the description. Hope you have a lovely weekend. Lux Veritas. Hey, you like my crazy looking shirt, huh?